Welcome to the 26th video. Here we're going to continue our quest towards combat, and in preparation for that I want to bring in some weapon models so we have something to work with. These weapon models are off the asset store, and we see the Stone Age weapons folder here. This has the asset information here from 31 low poly Stone Age weapons. It's a free asset. Each weapon has two handles, one for the head, two materials, one for the handle and one for the head. I don't care about that, but what we get from this is a model that we can bring in and use within our scene here. So here's the club here, and so it's a stick with a head and some rope around it. Here's what the sword looks like. It's hard to see it because these have different rotations and things like that that make it hard to spot. Oh, the mesh is missing for my sword. Well, that's interesting. I have to go look and find out what might be going on with that. Here's the other sword. Those meshes should have been in with the Stone Age weapons, but I'll go and track that down. But I've got two weapons here that have their that can be found. Okay, so that's what this looks like. And so I think these are appropriate for our orcs. They're pretty low-tech creatures there. The way these work is, and this is why I've expanded this orcs model hierarchy out here. Every model that we get should have some sort of a hierarchy like this. And we can see there are familiar sounding names for things. But note I've expanded out through his spine, found his shoulder, and then found his right hand. And so what I'll just do is take this club, and I can just attach it to his right hand. And it doesn't really do anything, right? It's there. Well, that's because its transform is relative to its parent. We need to reset the transform, and it pops in sort of in his hand. Not quite. One of the processes of setting up a weapon model is going to have to be to adjust the transform. And to do this, we have the club selected. We might pick a rotation and say, please rotate this around this way. We can scale it. We can transform it around to get it to fit within the hand a little bit. So when he swings his arm, that it will stay attached to it at that attachment point. Now I'm not sure. That's you just saw how much work I put into it. It wasn't very much, but now he's walking around with that thing in his hand, and it's pointed the wrong way, but still it doesn't look too bad. That's what you got for about 10 seconds worth of work. That's how we do attachments. And so what we want is this transform here, which is relative to the attachment point, his right hand. Okay? And so what we'll do then is we just record that once we had it looking right, and that is the transform we'll apply to an object when we spawn it into the world. We will spawn the weapons just like we spawned the orcs in the world. Okay, we'll instantiate this prefab down here, which is why we have these prefabs. We'll instantiate the prefab, parent it to the right hand. So it's why it's important that we know the name of the attachment point. Now, different models may have different names. You can go through and rename the point, or what we could do is we could create a name, and I've done this sometime. I'll just create an empty game object, attach it to the hand, give it a 0 transform, and give it a well-known name like, primary attach or something like that. So we can just search for it and then connect the club to that point. Then we take this prefab, this transform settings here, and we'll assign it to the object, just like we updated the transforms of the orcs when they spawned into the world. And so that will cause the model to rotate, translate, shrink, do all that stuff, and it'll pop back in looking the way we wanted it to. So that's the science behind weapons. If we do that for a selection of weapons, and it looks like we have two that have meshes right now, so we can do that. We can then swap the weapons out by despawning one of the weapons and spawning another type and attaching that. So we're going to need some way to store this information. This will be static information on the weapon types. Every club will have the same transform there. No matter how many we make into the world, they'll all have that transform applied to them. and so we'll have that type of static data, just like we had static data on the orcs too. That would say, this is how we want you to translate. Now, they inherited almost all of their transforms from spawn point, but the scaling was definitely model independent or NPC type dependent. Okay, so that's enough of the planning. That's one of the things that we're going to do this time, is to get that in there. So we're going to create another manager class that will be the combat manager. It's going to have the information on the weapon transforms, but also weapon properties too. How fast is this weapon? How long should it take for the attack to occur? Okay, and we can use this to either adjust the speed of the weapon attack animation, or we can adjust the period between the animations to say there's going to be a cooldown of this amount of time between when you swing and when you get to swing again. And in doing so, we'll set up a weapon speed. That will be a property that we can change for the different types of weapons. We might want to say how much damage you get, what type of skill is needed to use the weapon, so that somebody who is good at this type of weapon but bad at another type will get the benefits and the lack of benefits when we swap out the weapons. So a lot of things we can do with that, and then we put all that type of information in the combat manager, because it's static data that we're just going to look up when we need it from that manager. The chase behavior that we went over in class, we'll need to put that in, and that will work with the target manager as well to set a target and then pursue the target. One of the things we'll also have to do for chase behavior is to keep track of, first of all, the entering and leaving chase behavior. As we talked about in class, we'll do that with a sphere collider. So there will be an invisible bubble around the NPC that when you cross into that, you will change the behavior to chase. Now we'll conditionally do that. We'll check certain things to decide whether we're going to chase it. Like, is it a player? An NPC would go after the player, but not another NPC. You can do whatever you want to with that type of checks there. You can have certain NPCs that don't like each other, that would attack each other. That's okay. We could also set up invulnerability flags so that we don't attack somebody who's invulnerable, take off the invulnerability flag, and then they're fair game. So we can do those types of things as well. So that's part of the chase behavior. The chase behavior also will have to address what was the NPC doing before that chase behavior? What was its prior behavior that it had? And so we look at the AI controller and look at this little state machine, and we'll save the prior behavior off, and then we'll restore it if they ever leave the chase. That means if they catch the player and kill the player, then they will go back to their prior behavior. If the player leaves combat range, then they will stop pursuit and revert back to their prior behavior. So there's a couple of things that we want to do there that will require us to save that prior behavior. So I think we've got most of the stuff there for a good video here. So let's go after that. Let's start with the combat manager, and I'm going to get rid of this club for right now. I have the prefabs good enough to know that club 3 and short stone sword seem to be working. What other material? What other items do we have here? Well, let's go back into the Stone Age weapons, and if we look at the prefabs in here, here they are with names like weapon 1, 2, something or other. So these are all the ones that we have here. I can pull this into the world and we can take a look at it. So we could easily get one of these to bring in. Note that its center point, its 0 point, where the pivot point there is where you'd normally expect the hand to attach to. We can move that. That's part of the transform. Okay, this is the 0 point of its transform, and so we can move that around. So we can change all of that stuff, but we've got all of these weapons that came with that asset. I think that's plenty to get us going with. But we'll need to pick those assets. I'm going to delete these guys here, and now the prefabs need to be in the resources folder if we're underneath resources if we're going to spawn them in directly. I have these weapons coming in the models directory because that's where that was some place to put the the whole asset package when it unpacked. I don't know that I need all that stuff, but I do need the meshes and the materials. Those need to be in there. The prefabs can find them wherever they are inside under assets, but we need to have the prefabs themselves down under resources to be dynamically spawned. So let's get with that right now. Maybe we could try to recreate what was done with the chase behavior. And I'm not sure that I can remember all of that, what we did, but I think we can probably recreate it. First thing to note was we're going to have to go pull up some scripts. And one of the things we're going to pull up is the AI controller. Now, under scripts, we have the AI controller right there. AI character controls, this one right here. And this looks familiar to us there. We'll, of course, put chase in here as a behavior, and then we'll start adding some more stuff to it. There's a certain order to how all this works, and so I'll try to remember that. One of the things that we're going to do, I think, first was to set up the case inside, and that would be behavior.chase, and I'm just going to call this chase function, which I haven't written yet, because there's no initialization that's needed. The initialization typically sets up a destination and it tells the agent to go towards it. Our chase behavior is going to be doing that every frame. So we'll want to do that. Oh, but let me just back up here to update. And let's just go ahead and put that in here. Case behavior.chase. And tell it to go to chase and break. That's pretty much what... Oh, did I put semicolon parentheses after that? Break's not a function. Okay, that's kind of like we did with wander and patrol. So I can come down here to underneath wander here and add it in as a peer to it, and private void chase. Now, each of these things tend to set its speed, and then it calculates the distance and then checks to see if we're close enough. So that's going to be our clue to of what types of stuff that we want to do. Okay. Now there were a couple of checks that we put in early to say if agent dot enabled and I decided to change that to agent not enabled, that I would just return from this. Started to type break. Okay, so if the AI agent's disabled for any reason, we won't go into chase. Okay, and then what we'd want to do is to calculate the distance here. Now, everybody has their remaining distance here. I guess I'll go ahead and call it remaining distance equals, and that will be a vector 3 dot distance function, and we give it two transforms. One is this dot transform dot position, so it's our current location. The second is, you can see up here we use destination, where we're going. Well, where we're going is going to be based on our target position. Now, what's the target? How does that set? I'm going to go back up to the top here, and we'll see that there's a transform target here that's set there. I think we have a set target method that can be used to assign a target to an AI character. And that will happen a couple of ways there. We could set it externally. We're going to have it set internally, and that is when somebody comes within range to us, then they will become our target. But assuming we already have that, now target.position, let me just go back up here. Target.position hasn't been set yet. Okay, and so I'm trying to think, do we enable the agent now or not? Well, we'll have to get into chase first, so I'll leave the I won't worry about that yet because we haven't got into chase, so we'll have to make sure that target's set before we get into chase. That's a reasonable thing to do because somebody caused us to go into chase. So the fact that we haven't initialized it yet is not exactly a problem, but it's something to be concerned about. And then we'll want to say if distance is greater than remaining distance is greater than, and I want to know the aggro range. But this was the question that we had in class too, and that is aggro range to what? Well, we want to know the current NPC that we're attached to. This AI character control, it must be attached to an NPC. That means that we're going to want to pull it in here and as a variable private NPC and let me just expand that out so that it looks a little nicer. Alright, this NPC reference, where are we going to get it? Well, we're going to do it down here in start. There is a good place to get it. And this is where we're loading stuff there. So NPC equals, and I'll just say get component. I'll need to get it from the targetable. Did we set those targetables? I'm not sure if that was done here in a video or not. Let's check. Orc, click on that and see. Yes, he does have a targetable down here. It's a target NPC. Let's see if player was set. Yes, it has a player. Okay, so those are the two target types that I'm most concerned about right now. We also had target types for the structures, and but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I just want to know if there's a targetable. And if there's a targetable, let me go to my script. I don't know if I have the I have a few things up here. Let me get rid of that README file. I have the spawn point editor. I was thinking about making some changes to that. I think I can leave that out. One of the things that I don't have though is the spawn group. So let me go get that. That was up here in scripts, I think. Mobs, probably under mobs, and then spawn group. Spawn group is the one who spawned the NPC into the world, and right there is where we scroll it, and this is where we assign it down here. So we find the targetable for a game object, assign it. That means that when it's spawned into the world, it will have an NPC structure. Now these static guys were never spawned into the world, so they'll not have structures. We'll have to consider that, but the AI control is going to need to try to find those. And so targetable equals get component targetable. So the static orcs that are out there, actually they do have targetables. They don't have any NPC structures attached to them yet. So we'll have to be concerned about that. I don't know if those guys initialize it to null, that reference there. Maybe I should take a look at that and see if that happens. Here's the NPC class, and no, I don't see that happening there. Let me do that really quickly because that's a bug waiting to happen. And targetable equals game object dot get component. Game object has been created already and passed into us, so since it was spawned from a prefab, we will have the targetable there. We won't have a data associated with it. I'm not sure what comes up in the prefab. It may be null. I hope it is, but just to make sure, targetable.data equals null. There. We are going to set that there and then override it here when it's assigned. And that way, if any NPCs are created outside of outside of a spawn group, they won't have any data in there. We won't have to worry about that. These guys have targetables, but I don't know that the static has any has any data attached to it. I wish I knew. I guess I'll have to check it. Okay, and what better way of checking it is doing that to say, well, it has a name, right? And has an ID and all that type of stuff. We could probably find it. If targetable is not equal to null, then I want to get the NPC data out of that. Did I declare my NPC up there? I did. So I can say NPC equals targetable, not targetable dot data as NPC. Okay, and that will load it out of there if it can. Possibly gives us a null reference if nothing can be turned into an NPC. Okay, so if targetable equals null, then I want to have a debug.log NPC has null targetable. That will be meaningless to us. Else, if NPC equals null, debug.log NPC has targetable but no NPC structure. Okay, that might be enough to let's just run this right now and tell our spawned things will come into the world with both of those. The static guys won't. Compiler errors. What happens? Unexpected symbol here. There. Oh, I started writing something and I didn't get a chance to finish it. That's okay. I'll just back that out. Happens a lot. Did I save that? Let me check to see if I saved everything. Yep, everything. I'm looking for the little asterisks that appear next to the file names. They're kind of hard to see. Okay, there's enough of that. Let's see what we got here. NPC targetable, no NPC. 3 of those came in. No other errors there. Well, 3 of them correspond clearly to these 3 knuckleheads right here. So that tells us what to expect in here, that we will get targetables but no NPC structure. I'm going to remove these debug rights because they serve their purpose here of telling us what we need to know. The static guys will be removed from the scene soon, but they won't cause any trouble as long as we check that the NPC is not null. Okay, so why did I do that? Because NPC chase down here, I'm going to have another exit condition here. I could split it up in there, or NPC equals null. Okay, that will cause us to bail out if there is no NPC structure attached to it. And now, at this point, we can just assume that an NPC exists, and we can say if remaining distance is greater than NPC dot, and I don't have my aggro range here. Did I not fix that? Okay, let's go back up in here and see. These were all made private. I'm not sure what I was thinking then. But what I'm thinking now is that that those could be public so I can access them here. And then we'll have our de-aggro range. So if we ever get outside of de-aggro range, if we get far enough away from an NPC, even if we're in chase mode, we're going to leave chase mode. So this is where we talk about what does it mean to leave chase mode. What we will want to do is, well, go back to what we were doing before we entered chase mode. Yeah, all right. I'll just have to put a comment here because I can't really do that. We were doing before entering chase mode. I can't do it yet because maybe we should talk about how to get into chase mode here. If we're that's one possibility there. Else, if we're not within our actually, what's going to happen here? Let me just back up for a second here. We're going to do that, and then I'm going to put a return in here. We're going to leave chase. If we're outside this range, we're leaving chase mode. So we will change our behavior to whatever we were doing before, and then return. And the next frame we'll start something new. Okay, so that's the end of that thing here. What I am interested, though, say is if remaining distance is greater than npc.attack range, do I have aggro range, attack range? Okay, the attack range, right now that's, I think, hard-coded some value. That's going to come from the combat manager somehow. Because clearly that's going to depend on, well, it might come from the combat manager. Let's take a look at our attack range here. Okay. Attack ranges, though, are specified per type here. That's good enough for right now. That's good enough for right now. We have ranged attack. We have close in. I can see where we might adjust the attack range a little bit by the weapon type. And if you were using a weapon, a hand-to-hand weapon, a sword or a club or something, we might change your attack range a little bit based on that. So instead of storing the attack range in here, we probably store something to indicate what the attack type would be, and it would be a weapon, and then we'd select a weapon somewhere during the spawning cycle of what weapon that it would want to use. I know it's getting more and more complicated here. But for right now, we have our hard-coded attack range. And so, let's see. If we think about that, if we're further away, too far away from attack range, we want to close to our target. And we'll do so notice we set speed up here to early on. Normally we set it right at the top of chase, but we're going to set it right here to be run speed. Oops, do I not have a run speed? Equals run speed. Okay, whatever the run speed is. Those, I think, are hard-coded up here. Oh, they're public, and they're set and sliders, we could adjust them that way. That seems like something that ultimately may need to come from the NPC manager here, is that we could change how fast they run in here, and so AI character control would look up what model or what type of NPC it's attached to, and then set its run speed and its walk speed from that. See, all sorts of things we can do here, but right now we're going to use the default run speed and say start running, and then I'll want to we'll want to set our destination, agent.set destination to be target.position. Note that the target will have to be set beforehand to probably the player, but whoever it's deciding it's going to attack will have to be loaded into target and then chase turned on. So it has its destination, and then what we'll do is we'll tell the character controller to move, and then what we'll do for that is we'll say I think we have character. Yes, we do. See, we have character move right up here. I'm just going to copy this line because this is exactly how we tell somebody to move. Agent desired velocity, jump, and all of that. It will pick the desired velocity based on the run speed. It tends to ramp up and slow down as it as it starts out. I think it ramps up a little bit, so it doesn't instantly hit run speed. It starts out at its current speed and then kind of interpolates between that to very quickly come up to run speed. And then when we tell it to stop, it'll kind of slow back down again. Jump and crouch. I think that that's all we probably need for if it's within, if it's outside of attack range. Now, the alternative is this inside attack range. If it's not outside, it must be inside. So we are at or below the attack range. We could put in a minimum and make attack range a minimum and a maximum. So this is the desired attack range, and this is the point where we're too close. That type of thing could apply if we're using ranged combat, where it would not want to be too close. You'd either switch to a close-up weapon, or you'd move out of range or something like that. But for right now, we're just going to treat everything within that distance as the same. And so we will want to turn towards the target and come to a stop. And then we'll want to, part of our chase behavior here is really going to be making the attacks. So let's first of all turn to face target. And the reason is just because we're chasing them, we might not end up directly facing them at the end. We may come in at a side or angle or something like that. So let's turn to face that. And that would mean setting transform.rotation equal to, and this is going to be a quaternion dot slurp, which is the spherically interpolated, linear interpolated interpolation value between transform.rotation, our current rotation, and that should be slurp, not slepper, because that's linear interpolation. The current rotation and quaternion dot look rotation of from the target to us. So target dot position minus transform dot position. So I'd encourage you to think about that. Okay, this is giving us a vector. The differences between these two positions gives us a vector, and that should point from the target to us. So we're going to be making contact there, and then I think we have a rotation speed. Do I not? Maybe I don't. It doesn't look like I do. I have one for the character controller, if you remember, to control how fast it rotates. So let's go and make one real quick. Okay, so we just put it up in here in our variables there, and so this would be a this can be a private const float rotation speed equals 30.0f. That's just the value that seems to work for me. You can adjust it to your taste, but the position then is going to linear interpolate between these two vectors, and I want to have it go at a speed there, which would be rotation speed times time dot delta time. Okay, so that will turn us there. And then what I want to do is when character dot move, this is another move here, but this time I'm going to say vector 3.0, and I'll take this jump and crouch business, copy that down and paste it in here. Okay, so I'm giving it a move of 0 there. That will kind of stop it. And I will also agent.speed equals 0. In order to really effectively get it to stop, though, I think I might have to actually disable the agent, which is going to bring up a lot of little problems here with us, because I have to turn the agent off and turn it back on. Really, that was kind of what this agent enabled is for, is it lets me turn the agent off and then have it turn it back on. But maybe I don't want to just turn it off at the start of chase. Maybe I don't want to just abandon the chase if the agent is disabled. It might be disabled because we came and stopped at our target. So we'll have to rethink that. Now, how are we going to get into chase? I'm dying to try this out, but how are we going to get into that? And so what we'll have to do is we'll have to set up a couple of functions to do that. First of all, I'm going to create up a public void aggro. And what aggro will do is take a game object, and I'm going to call this aggro target. To aggro means to take an aggressive stance towards, and this will be our target. And so what we will do, of course, is say something like target equals, and that would be the aggro target, and it has to be dot transform, because remember the target is a transform. The reason I make it a target a transform and not a game object is I can actually give it a point in space to go and attack, and it will chase after that. If I want to make it just run over there, I can make it go and run towards it. So it will be pursuing that. I could have it chase moving points around. It gives me a lot of flexibility because it doesn't have to be a game object. And this is a good spot to talk about what happens when we do aggro something, and that means we're going to be entering chase mode. So this is perhaps a good place to make something become aggressive towards some target object. And that's really going to be enter chase mode. And then attack when in range. That's kind of what we're going to be doing there. Now, the reason I make this a function is that I can call it outside of this if I want to just arbitrarily command somebody to go attack something. This is in addition to the self-aggro behavior that we might get if we enter in a collider. Okay, that's the obvious way, is somebody enters something, but if I wanted to, for whatever reason, tell somebody to go attack somebody else, I could just do this through this public method. Okay, so I'm just part of this design process, and it's not really a design that's done up front, which is too bad, but I'm choosing to kind of do this as we go along based on some notes from previous semesters. Part of this design is to give us a lot of flexibility, even if we don't use it. Okay, even if we don't use it now, we've got it there. So that's, I think, the key to a good design is maximum flexibility towards the future. Okay, now, what are we going to do here? One of the things I want to do, though, is I want to save off what we're doing. What we're doing when we come into chase might be, for example, wander. We have a speed that we're moving at. We have a destination. We have a behavior, wander. So those are the three things that we want to save. And so I'm going to go up here and declare some variables here to hold this information. And so I will want to have a private behavior, and this will be the old behavior. A private vector3, which would be the old destination. A private float, which would be old speed. I'll drop this down lowercase here to be a little bit more consistent. Kind of inconsistent because of the way I'm using camel case for everything else. but I just felt like separating that old out to make it very clear what we're doing here. These are the three things I think that define the state in our state machine. The behavior, the speed, and the destination. So I will come down here and save those. So old behavior equals behavior. Behavior is a class, so behavior is the variable that holds it. That's what we switch off of up here in this switch. Old destination is going to be destination, I think I can just say, equals destination, because destination is set like right up in here. Every other thing other than the chase. Chase doesn't set it, but we won't transition from chase into chase. We shouldn't do that. Famous last words. Old speed equals, and that would be, I think it's going to be agent dot speed. So I can just look up the agent speed at the current point. And this is now preparing us to resume this behavior once we leave this. Here's where we, this is the de-aggro. Go back to what we were doing before entering chase mode. Well, let me just put that in here. Behavior equals old behavior. Destination equals old destination. Speed, it's going to be agent dot speed equals old speed. Okay, and then also we'll have to remember though that when we set a destination, we'll have to say agent dot set destination. Let me just copy it from up here. This type of thing we'll have to do. Oops. Okay, so the agent destination is set. The character move, we can avoid setting the character move right now because it'll get set the next frame when we come back around. So if we're running 30 frames a second, we'll be a 30th of a second, we'll start moving again. So I don't mind doing that. I don't mind waiting for that point. I think that's probably enough right there for restoring the state. Okay, so that's what we did with there. So back down here into aggro then, part of aggro is going to be setting this. We should check though to see if the aggro target is targetable. I mean, we just set it, we're treating it that way, but this is where we will say targetable, targetable, and I might make some function to help me with this in a little bit, is aggro target, remember it's a game object, dot get component, and then I'll just say please give me a targetable inside you, and if targetable equals null, then we will just return. Why? Because it's not targetable. We can't aggro something that's not targetable. You can't aggro the terrain. You can't aggro one of my waypoints. You know, those are crazy things there. So we're trying to stop problems before they become big there. So some sanity checks are okay on that. Now, if I wanted to, we could probably log some of this stuff, and that might be kind of nice to do, but we don't have that. So we're saving off of that. We also, as a result of though, after setting that, I want to change my behavior equals, and that will be behavior.chase. That's exactly what I want. And then we'll want to set agent destination. No, it's set destination. Dot set destination to the target dot position. That's the vector 3 that has it. And we could set the agent speed, but that's set at the top when we go back into chase mode, so we don't need to worry about that. I think that might be enough to get us our aggro behavior. Let's talk about what's going to take to get us into an aggro other than manually doing this. Now I could do through the command line add in some commands to make somebody aggro me. That might be kind of a nice thing to do. Let's try that. That might be a good thing to do to test some of this behavior out before we go into the colliders. And that brings up another thing else that I'd like to do at this point too. I put in this work to get a console down here. I want to use the console for some logging. And what I want to do here is to create yet another manager class really quickly. This one won't be too bad, but it's going to be what I'll call a UI manager for the user interface, to be a front end for the interface. If I have multiple console windows up, which one should I be talking to? Give me a console, those types of things. So it should probably keep track of some of this stuff. And it's also going to introduce give us the opportunity to do some rather nice stuff with what I'll call I/O channels. And that is that I want to have multiple logical channels for logging. So we can turn some on, turn some off, have them come out in different colors so that they separate there. We could choose to direct them to different consoles if we have more than one open, so that certain channels go there. If I later decided to make a tab to control for a console, which I could do, and then we could have it go into a different tab. So there's all sorts of things that we could do with that UI manager, and I think it's a good place to start with that. So let's just build that really quickly, at least get it up to the point where it can give us a console. So this will be kind of fun here. Now the scripts were didn't I have something for UI? I did have UI scripts out here for this. So let's make one really quick. It's going to be the UI manager. And the UI manager will manage user interface stuff, bring it up inside here. This will be a mono behavior, so we will allow it to connect to, it'll be a component for our managers game object that we have here. One of the things I want to do up here is to create a channel type here for public enum channel type. We'll talk more about channels here in a second, but the two types we're going to have is channel general and channel combat. So I could separate off combat related stuff there. Combat messages can be kind of spammy in some cases. You wouldn't want to have them mixed in with your regular text, stuff that's high priority. So we might want a way to split those off to a different window or something like that. So I want that ability there. What does it mean, though, to have a channel? Well, channels are going to be directed to consoles. So I'll have a private dictionary, and a dictionary is a mapping of two types there. So it's going to be channel type to console, and I call that channel syncs. Okay, so because we're gonna be syncing data to it. Next, I'm gonna have a set of colors. Dictionary, and that will also be a channel type to a string. Colors are represented by the strings. So, example, white and red and stuff like that. Regular stuff there. Channel colors equals null. Those will have to be created when the during initialization here. I don't need a comment to remind me to do that, but I can certainly say channel syncs equals new dictionary channel type console, and there channel colors colors equals new dictionary channel type string. Okay, so that takes care of that. So we can have a way to direct something to a particular channel by channel type, and it'll go out there. Now, my channel colors, I'm going to load that right now out of colors sub, and the channel type dot channel general is going to be equal to, and this will be in hexadecimal constant, and then 0000 CCFF. All right, what's that do there? That's red, green, blue, alpha. So red is formatted 0, green is 0, blue is CC, so it's a dark blue, and then FF is full opaque alpha. So that's going to give us a dark blue here. Dark blue. And my channel colors for channel type dot combat is going to be, let's make this one red. And so that's going to be hexadecimal CC0000 FF. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it has to be 32 bits, 4 bytes long, and that will do that. Maybe it'd be best if I just kind of put it out here so they lined up so that we can see that this is, and this is kind of dark red. Alright, those colors are going to be constant, and we'll just leave them in there. I don't know that I'm going to need an update method for the channel, this guy here, but I will need a method that will be public void send message. And so you'll send message to a channel. Channel type, channel, and some string message. And so that would mean that if we do that, I would want to, first of all, say console window, that's going to be the window we're going to be using, equals channel syncs of the channel type. Oops, I want the channel there. And then string color equals channel colors sub channel. You know, your default is really bad on that. And then I would say window dot, and then we have add string. Remember add string? And then we'd say, I want to say color equals. This is a part of the rich text format. And I don't want to close that. And then say the color plus, there's the closing bracket for the color. So we'd get something like color equals pound 000 pound 0000 CCFF, like that, blah, and then color. That's what I want. So what I'll do here is put the message after it, and then plus the literal string, oops, color. Okay. So it's very much like HTML. It's a markup. Rich text, though, predates HTML, I'm pretty sure. I seem to recall rich text back in the 80s. And I don't recall HTML being a thing until the 90s. So there's probably about 10-year head start on rich text for this sort of stuff. Okay, that was pretty easy there. And now how does it get its windows? That's going to be an interesting thing here. We're going to have to register them. Public void register, and I'm going to register a console with it. So console window. And in this case here, what I'll want to have, oh, I should probably make a list of those, shouldn't I? Let's see, why would I make a list of that? I have to think about this now. I don't know if I really need that. No, I don't think I need to do that right now. The registration could be just a match of saying if now, window, how do I know what that console type is? And what it's really going to be is something like okay, let's just reset all of them here on this here. I'll just worry about this in a little bit. Channel color, not channel syncs is what I want. Sync sub, and this will be channel type dot combat equals window, and channel syncs channel type dot general equals window. We'll worry about multiple consoles and setting up their syncs and all that stuff later. This will handle just one of those there, and we can reset it later. Okay. can reset this stuff later. And I'll also want an accessor for public string get channel color that would take a channel type channel, and it's an accessor to that dictionary. So return channel colors sub channel. Do I have to check its range or anything like that? No, because we're accessing it through an enumerated type, and that fully specifies all the possible values that come from channels. So we've fully populated all of the channel colors values there. So there's no unsafe accesses. Now, I made this a mono behavior, but there's no need for an update, and frankly start is only needed if it's a constructor. So I've kind of changed my mind about how I want to do this. I'm not going to make this a mono behavior anymore, and the reason is that I want to be able to, I'm going to make this into a singleton. So my start will really be the constructor. So I'm going to make that a private void. Actually, constructors don't return a type. So UI manager, and that will take care of that. I will create a static private UI manager underbar instance, which is assigned initialized to null, and then I will have a static public UI manager returns UI manager instance method that will, you know the drill by now. If underbar instance is equal to null, then underbar instance equals new UI manager. That will run the constructor, and in this case return instance. Okay, so if instance was already populated, we'll skip over the constructor, return the static instance. Otherwise, we'll call it. This is a static method. It's public, can be called even if we don't have a UI manager. Therefore, we're guaranteed that we will have exactly one instance or zero at any particular time. And the UI manager will initialize itself when this happens. So now I had earlier put this in here. I'm going to remove it from here because I think having a singleton as a mono behavior was just going to break a lot of things, so I'm going to take care of that. I don't need to have any mono behavior stuff in there, I don't think. What this does let me do, though, is to go into the console, and this is some code I was playing around with earlier. Let me just take this all out and say I want a reference to my UI manager stored here and inside the console. And what I can just do here is say UI manager equals UI manager dot instance. There. And I don't have to worry about it not finding it because it will always find it. I was trying to put it as a component inside managers, and that was giving me some difficulty. I'd have to use, find game object, and that was not a good idea for all the different places who might want to use the console later on, or any of the other UI elements. Is that going to work? We'll find out here. Why don't I debug this by saying when somebody starts up here, do we know their name and all that? Well, we have their NPC information. Do we get that information here? Right there we do. So in that case, UI manager dot instance dot send message, and then any channel type, which will be dot general, and this is AI character control starting plus npc.name. Okay, this is how we can use a console in the game. and it's worth it to have that type of stuff, assuming I didn't make some serious errors in thinking when I did this. Looking okay. Nothing registered here. That's not good. Did people not go in here? Let's take a look at this console here. Oh, got exceptions. Object reference not set to an instance of an object here at this line. UI manager dot instance could not possibly be. Now it's possible. Oh, it's possible that there was no data for this. Oh, that's right. That's not good because the static NPCs don't have any data with them. So if NPC, normally I say if it's not null, so I better go and do that. It's not equal to null. I think that's the problem there. Why didn't I see logging of stuff out here? Maybe the consoles didn't handle their thing here. I think there's going to be a few problems. We're still going to have to debug. Okay. Key not given to present dictionary. And this is probably going to be right in the code I said it was absolutely safe. We didn't have to worry about it. Come on, bring it up in the editor. Oh, you're not going to. Okay, that's in systems that get item. Oh, you're not going to tell me where that occurred. Well, what we can do is we can look at the stack trace back and see it was in UI manager send message. And what was it trying to give for the key? Does it tell me that? Channel. Okay, let's go find that send message call. There's only one of them here. UI manager channel type channel general. Now let's go to the UI manager and see when this comes in. The UI manager will have loaded. But the console registration may not have occurred by that point. Is that what we're saying here? Okay, it's possible that the AI character is kept up before the console registration does. Is the console registration complete here? No, it's not. It never happened. So UI manager dot register console this. There's what the console registration should have been. There might be a little bit of a race condition with the console, but okay. Now we got some messages there. Character control starting an orc. Send message is not scrolling this down correctly in my console. Let's see. Where is my send? Add message, or what was it? Well, let's take a look at the target. Let's look at the UI manager. Send message we'll call add string. Is add string what I want it to do? Add string says scrolled text, and oh, the scroll to bottom doesn't occur here. Well, let's put that down there too. See, a little defect with the console that we can easily adjust. There. Okay, all three of my console orcs started their character control, and that's good. Now, what about those other orcs over here? What are we doing with these guys? Why is this guy up on the roof? Okay. That's kind of bizarre. This camp wasn't even supposed to respawn. Did I accidentally do something? Yeah. I've somehow changed which camp respawns in here somehow. And remember, it had to do with which. I think it was which spawn group it found. Not sure. Did I mess up the spawn groups here? Right, spawn orc camp here, 2 spawn groups, and orc over here. So I'm not sure what happened with that, but all right. One of the spawn groups though is spawning that guy up on the roof, and that's a little weird. But they're not. One of those possible spawns is not. Elemental orcs are a little bit too big for themselves there, and I can't target them. Now I can target that one. Okay. I must have hit the tree or something like that. All right, so that's good. Why did the AI character control not start up with that one? This is all good to check out and debug. I know this video is getting a little long, but this is all good stuff here. This is the start on the AI controller, which is a mono behavior, which should start when the thing is registered. However, if the guy is spawned in the spawn group here, we would create the spawn point here, and then the NPC comes in later. This guy's already spawned and started up, so we've skipped the NPC. I'm sorry, the AI character control comes up with no NPC. All right. That's not going to be a problem for my guys, I don't think. It means, though, they missed this initialization stuff here, and they'll start in their update. That's not terribly good. I'd like to restart them if I could. I don't know how to go about doing that, because they instantiate, but they don't have their NPC. I mean, all of this stuff will happen without the NPC. It's just that Chase will come up the very first time with no NPC, if they were to start in Chase. And they're not going to start in Chase. They'll just return out of here, and then the next time through they'll come in there fine. All right, so I don't think that's a problem. I think the console is working, and I believe that these guys will initialize, but maybe they won't have their initialization right here. But I don't have a way to check it down here too, was when they get their NPC structure. And they may not get it if they come through if they come through with start with NPC not there, they won't load it. So we're going to have to load it up here. The only time we really need to load it is when we're going into Chase. So maybe I should do that later. Either that or come up with some way of making NPC assigned to this guy before they get created. And I can't do that without the spawn. Or what I could do is pass the NPC into the spawn here and let it do that. Let's find the spawn point. So apologize if this is really disjointed. I'm trying to talk to myself really and figure out what's going on here. Let's go back down into the mobs and see what this is, and I promise I'll explain it to you. Mobs, spawn point. Remember, spawn point spawns these things in spawn. It gets a game object and instantiates it, and during the instantiation, it that will call start. But I believe that we might be able to. Oh, I guess not. I was going to say I believe we could probably assign its NPC in here. Okay, sorry for the hard edit there, but things were getting confusing, and they're just going to get a little bit worse there until I work it out here. The problem is that when the AI character control runs its start, that the NPC won't have been assigned into its structure. It isn't assigned until after the instantiation is complete, and then NPC will not be looked at in the targetable. I don't have another way to assign that inside the AI character control. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out of this. Okay, I don't think I need targetable. It's private into this function here, so I don't need this here. Okay, it's not going to get set in time anyway. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my NPC here and make it public. This is a hack, but it'll still be a workable hack. And the spawn point does, in fact, get the AI character control right here. So we could easily set it if we had it in the spawn point. So spawn group could easily do this by creating the NPC. However, it won't have a game object to store into this. I know it's all unraveling. My little house of cards is unraveling here. What I can do, though, is to create the NPC. And if the game object fails to spawn for some reason, we'll just lose the reference to it. Okay. Now, NPC constructor wants a game object. Okay. The game object is stored in the base of the NPC, and that's in the mob. So it must be public there. I'm going to get rid of game object here. And I'm going to get rid of game object here. And I sure hope this is going to work. I know it's a lot of little changes right here that I don't like. But I'm going to say spawn here, and I'm going to give it an NPC. Okay. Now, is the spawn point going to take that? No, it is not going to right now. NPC. But then if we get it, AI controller down here, I can say ctrl.npc equals NPC. There, that stores it in there right away. And the NPC structure needs the game object, npc.go equals go. And that will store it into the base. So that's all of the hookup that we needed for that, I believe. Will that work? If it does work, then we should see all of those guys starting up in the scene. And they're not just the 3 static ones, and we get a compiler error. And it says no overload for this guy takes 2 arguments. Spawn point spawn does take 2 arguments, but he hasn't been saved. Okay, anybody else not saved? Nope. Okay, alright, let's try it again. I don't know if it had to finish compiling, and then it has to hit my thing, and nobody came up here. I took my no reference here in at this point here. That's the NPC. There, we don't have the game object there. It can't very well set it in here. Alright, now spawn point is going to set the NPC data to okay, the targetable information for this game object. Targetable equals go dot get component. Targetable dot data equals NPC. Now that should take care of that. That means then that the targetable information has the NPC information as well. Oh, I should also go back to this and say that the message that we originally were getting from AI character control up at the start is no longer going to show up here because it's because start will have completed before the NPC structure is assigned there. So I'm going to have to think about how I'm going to do this some other way. I'll show you the console some other way. I suppose we. I could say something like UI manager dot instance. No, what are you doing? I do not want you to dot instance dot send message starting AI character controller, and that's oh, and I have to have a channel up here. So this is going to be the channel type dot channel combat general would have been good. There, that will be okay. The point with this was to get 6 of those or so, one for each of those mobs that start up. So I got 3 of them. I still didn't get those other things over there. That's not good. And we're getting keys not in the dictionary. Erg. This is not good either. And that if I click on this, we'll see that this came from the UI manager send message that was called from AI character control start. So the UI manager instance may be called before the console registers, is all I can think of. But if the console UI manager, see the console registration occurs right here at start. So when this guy is instantiated, but he's not a mono behavior, so he'll be brought in. He'll be loaded in whenever. So we've got some sort of a race condition, I think, going on here. And I can't tell you what the result is. I do have that guy up on the roof here. I'm kind of curious what his spawn point is. So when we're probing the terrain height, it appears that it's putting us on top of the roof, which is not part of the terrain, but it is static. That's a good point there. That is a static object in the terrain manager. There's a height map, so it probably dumped them on top of the on top of that because of that height map. Okay, so I can't tell you why I'm not seeing my other 3 just yet. I think there's some sort of a race condition that I'm chasing around, and I'm going to have to take a break here and look at it. So it doesn't look like we made too much progress here, but with the chase, because I can't show it to you. So let's try to get that chase in here really quickly. And what I'm going to do is, well, as quickly as we can. We're getting this key not in the database there. So there is some sort of a race condition going on here where these guys are coming into the world before the console is created. And the console is, now can I adjust the console in its in the scene, in the order, the render order? The console comes up before the managers does. So yeah, I don't really know why that would be delaying their thing. So I'm going to ignore those messages for right now, and concentrate on what we need to do for the command interpreter to start up to aggro somebody. Okay, so here's the command interpreter. I want to make a new command here, so we'll just copy one of these and come down here, and I'll call this on aggro player. And all we'll do is get the player instance there, and we'll have to have a target though. So I'm going to check the target. How can I check that? Can't the target manager tell me the current target? Target manager sets a target when you click on it, but it doesn't save the target, does it? So I'm going to keep the targetable public targetable equals null, and we will just get rid of this there and assign the target when you click on it, and that will save in oh, wait a minute. That's a I want the game object that we hit there. So so my target's really going to be a public game object target, and I've just shadowed this thing down here, so I'm going to have to change this to targetable, and that to targetable, and this here. Sorry about that, but if I want to have a variable named target, I'm going to have to make sure that I'm not using it for other things. If the targetable is not null, then that means then that target equals geo. Okay, that was the raycast target that we hit there. It had a target on it. We'll assign it. That means I can go and ask the target manager, who I can't find. Oh, this is not good. Because it's not somebody I can find here, and it does need to be a game object so that we can look it up. I mean, so we can have this update occurring. So that's frustrating. I did that for nothing here, but I'm not going to give up just yet. I do have another place that I can look, and that's the player. The player, bring up the player here, is a singleton. So he has this. He has a target, which is public. Well, let's just go fix the target manager to say this. I don't need you to save this in your public game target, because I'll never find you. But do I have a player? And I'll say player.target equals geo. Now it's stored in the player. And that's exactly what I want. The player's target here is going to be the ones to do the aggro. And so p.target, and let's see, when I have somebody aggro, I'll need to get their character controller, won't I? So p.target will give me their game object, and then I'll need to look up the character controller so that I can call aggro on it. So this is how we're going to do that. I want this to be an AI character control. Example of using that, by the way, is down here in spawn point. And I'll just grab this here. In fact, I'll just grab this whole line here. This is a good example of looking that up here. And I'll just say, now, instead of saying GO, it's really going to be player p.target. There. That will give us my character controller. And then I'll say ctrl.aggro. And it wants a game object, which is the player's game object. Does the player know its game object? Let's check out. It does not. But it's a mob, does mob know its game object? When might not. NPC probably. Oh, but the mob does know its game object. The player may not have stored it in there when it was created. How does the player's game object know what this what is? Somebody's going to have to store during boot up the player game object, and that's really going to be the zone manager's job, because the zone manager starts up when the zone is. So its job is really going to be to say, player, here's the here's your game object. So let's just go over here and say this: player equals player.instance. Player.go is going to be the thing here, and I will need to get the player's game object here. Well, I will find game object go equals game object dot find player. I could always find with tag 2, but player.go equals go. And let me just rename this thing player go. Okay, so that stores the game objects inside the player structure. The command interpreter can come down here and say, I want to p.go, there, go aggro that. And I don't need to do anything other than saying perhaps the mob name that's going to be doing this, and that's p.target. Okay, so p.target, get component. Let's get the player target. Let's get the data for the target too. NPC equals p.target.get. I probably should create a helper function just to look up the game data for this. Targetable equals p.target, get component targetable, and if targetable, hopefully target is targetable, or else we wouldn't have had it, and that would be NPC equals null, NPC equals targetable.data as NPC. So we have possibly a null NPC here. If NPC equals null, then the console output will say output equals, and that would be no targetable data for player target. Otherwise, and then we'll just return, and then we'll just do the console dot add string, or actually I'll just do an else down here for this. Else and aggroing plus npc.name. That should work. Now, all of that stuff, is everybody saved out? Looks like it. Alright. I'm going to try this once. It's already an hour and a half into this video, which is a pretty long video. I'm not going to mess with those guys, but I will mess with this guy here. Oh, I didn't set up the command. I'm sorry, I forgot to do that. Select while Already selecting an object. This is not good. Not good at all. What caused this one? Deselect. I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to have to debug this one here a lot here. But I'll say this, that the on-player aggro is not going to happen without having new command text equals aggro action equals on aggro player. There. Really troubled about that last exception. I don't know what's going on with this. It might have something to do with the targeting system. And then I say aggro. And here he comes. Right after me. Okay, might want to up that speed a little bit. There he stops right in front of me. Okay, and if I move, he chases me some more. Okay, I see my waypoints are not in the layer to exempt themselves from projector. Okay, I think this little shaking behavior you're seeing here is because the agent's still enabled. So I'm going to have to do that. But you can also see the advantage of having a console here that I can do commands with. So that's enough for right now. I'm going to go look into this race condition some to see what I can do to stop that, other than, of course, not print out console messages during the AI character control startup, and avoid doing stuff in startup at all, or try to get the character console character control stuff to come up earlier. If I look at this console script here, that's one thing I can do. Oh, I didn't mean drag UI. That wasn't what I wanted. The console has its start method here. What if I call this awake instead? Not a whale, awake. I'm going to try that real quick because I'll see this. This will change the execution order of these things there, and it will cause it to come in perhaps a little ahead of... Oh, they're gone. Okay, so let's see if what we have here... I didn't watch that console quickly enough. There we see we've got a bunch of AI character controllers starting up and no exceptions. So that's how we got rid of that race condition, was just to start the consoles a little earlier in the sequence and let them register before the spawns were put into the world. Okay. Okay, so we saw things here that were looking pretty good. What are you doing? I don't think you aggroed on me. I think you're skating along aggro. But you can see the AI agent is working fine. Is he hung up on that tree? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, never mind. You know what's going on here. This is actually perfect. The elemental orcs have an attack range that's ranged combat. They're not going to try to close with too far to me because they'll want to stop and do spell casting. And where are you going? I don't know. I'll have to go and debug that part there too. But I think his running behavior looks a little weird because he's trying to get within spellcasting range, and maybe I'm not cooperating too well on that. Okay, so I'll send him another thing there. He stops, and that's spell range. Okay, so if I wanted that to be a little bit more, we're seeing some color artifacts out here, which are, I think, because of the area, the field of view of the projector. So I need to do that. Something's not exempt over there. All right. So I think this is pretty good for for this video. There, we've seen agent behavior. And the chase behavior is okay. So we're spawning that up. We've got the UI manager doing things to, you see the general stat messages are coming out in blue there. So we saw that. And nicely be able to scroll up and check my previous messages. So I think that's good for right now. I don't think I have to do anything more, but now what's going to happen next video? Well, I don't have any of the weapon statistics and stuff in there. I put the models in, and I did give that static guy a model that's facing the wrong way and all that. He's dutifully carrying that around. These guys need to spawn in the world and select weapons as well. I have 2 weapons. Maybe I should add a few more in there to let them have a little bit more choice. But then they're going to need to actually be using that, and that also means attack animations. I don't know that I have attack animations in here. When I say I don't know if I have them, if I go to the models folder for my orc and click on that, I can see my animations here: dying, idle, idle, right turn, left turn, walking, running. No attack animations in there, so I'm going to go get some of those, and I'll bring them in there. He needs some sort of spell casting, and he needs some sort of weapon animations, maybe swinging a weapon, and maybe some sort of thrusting action. So let me go do that for next video.